Okay, so we're going to take a look at the last of the macromolecules, which is nucleic acids. Just like the carbohydrates monomer is glucose, the protein monomer is amino acid, the monomer of a nucleic acid is called a nucleotide. Now, why didn't I mention a monomer for the lipids? Remember, they don't have a monomer. What is a nucleotide made up of? A nucleotide is made up of a sugar, which is represented by that pentagon there. The phosphate group, which is represented by that pink circle. Usually phosphate is a phosphorus with a circle around it. That's usually how that's represented. And then the nitrogen containing base, which is represented by that box right there. So this whole structure represents a single nucleotide. And there are two types of nucleic acids. One type is called deoxyribonucleic acid, also known as DNA, and you can see that the DNA is embedded in the name there. And then ribonucleic acid, which is also known as RNA. So you've probably heard of DNA and RNA, but didn't know they were nucleic acids made up of nucleotides. Okay, so DNA, what is its job? It is where all the genetic information is found. It contains the instructions for the cell. So just like we talked about in the protein section, the information on how to make these proteins is found in the DNA. Where is DNA found in the cell? It's found in the nucleus of the cell. It is double-stranded, so you can see here you've got one strand of DNA and you've got another strand of DNA. And this DNA, the two strands kind of coil around each other, forming what's called a helix. So sometimes it's referred to as a double helix, but DNA is double-stranded. Now, each one of these structures here that you're seeing, that one, this one, that one, these are called nucleotides. So those are the nucleotides. And each DNA nucleotide, we said generally a nucleotide is made up of a sugar, a phosphate, and a base, but specifically a DNA nucleotide is made up of a deoxyribose sugar, again represented by the pentagon over here in the picture, a deoxyribose sugar, a phosphate group, which is represented by the orange circle, and a base that contains nitrogen, a nitrogenous base. And there are four types of nitrogenous bases: guanine, adenine, cytosine, and thymine. Guanine is represented by a capital letter G, adenine by a capital letter A, cytosine by a capital letter C, and thymine by a capital letter T. So those are the bases that are found in a DNA nucleotide. Now, guanine and cytosine, those two bases always pair together. Thymine and adenine, those bases always pair together. So these are the base pairing rules that you need to know. Thymine and adenine, and then guanine and cytosine. What do those lines represent, those red lines? These red lines represent hydrogen bonds. And you can see that there's two hydrogen bonds between the thymine and adenine, and there are three hydrogen bonds between the guanine and cytosine, but you don't have to know that, but that's actually what that means. So again, the DNA structure here, you've got the double helix in this first image. So you've got the two strands. The ribbon makes up that sugar phosphate backbone. So that blue ribbon right there is the sugar and the phosphate part of the nucleotide, with the bases pointing inward. So you can see the adenine and thymine and how they're bonded together, the guanine and cytosine and how they're bonded together. So if you were to take that and kind of spread that apart a little bit, you've got your one strand of DNA and you've got your other strand of DNA. So this one, they're not all twisted, so you can kind of see it a little bit better. Those nucleotides, again, are pointing inward. You have your sugar phosphate backbone. And then you've got the bases that are inward and they bond with the corresponding base on the other strand. So again, guanine and cytosine bond together, adenine and thymine bond together. Okay, next you have RNA. Which is single-stranded. This is located throughout the entire cell, so you can find this in the nucleus, you can find this in the cytoplasm, all different kinds of functions going on with RNA. So we're not going to get into all the different functions of RNA because there's too many of them, so don't worry about that right now. The general structure of RNA is it's made up of a ribose sugar as opposed to a deoxyribose sugar, which is found in DNA. You've got ribose sugar, which is a pentagon. You've got the orange phosphate group, which is represented by the circle there. And then you've got the nitrogenous bases. Now, just like in DNA, there are 4 of them, but these are a little different. So you've got guanine, adenine, cytosine, and uracil. So uracil is the one that's not found in DNA, so that's why it's represented in red right here. There are a few types of RNA. We're not going to get into all the different types, so it is single-stranded as opposed to DNA, which is double-stranded. So it's single-stranded, and we'll get into this more in chapter 3, but there's an mRNA, which is called messenger RNA. It literally carries the message. rRNA, which stands for ribosomal RNA, and this is what actually makes up the ribosomes. And then tRNA, which stands for transfer RNA, and it transfers amino acids. So we'll get into more of that in chapter 3. So just generally looking at the summary between DNA versus RNA. DNA is double-stranded, RNA is single-stranded. The DNA contains the sugar deoxyribose. RNA contains the sugar ribose. And again, just like we said with enzymes, which is a type of protein, they end in the ASE ending on the word. Sugars end in the ose ending of the word. I don't know if y'all picked that up on the sugar part. And then the bases found in DNA are thymine, cytosine, adenine, and guanine. And the bases found in RNA are uracil, cytosine, adenine, and guanine. And this is the summary of the 4 types of macromolecules and their monomers and some examples. So this would be a really good chart to make sure that you could actually create on your own. So that way you don't get too messed up when you're getting those multiple choice questions. There are some videos, so when you're in the PowerPoint, there are some videos that kind of help. There's a Khan Academy video, which is about 9 minutes long, and it goes over the macromolecules. And then there's a crash course video, which if you've never seen Crash Course, it is pretty funny, but it is fast. Khan Academy talks slower, Crash Course, they talk pretty fast. It goes over the biological molecules, but be careful, it does not include the nucleic acids. Okay, and that is all of that finishes up those macromolecules.